So there are two different types of vlogging style, and if you're going to be using the Canon G7X Mark II and say you're walking about with the camera in the vlogging style, then I would recommend using automatic. If however you're in a situation where you might sit the camera down, it's on a tripod, then it'd be useful to use something like manual. The only thing is with, of course, using manual is that if you set the camera to manual, you might set the aperture to 5.6, and the reason why I say that is because that's in relation to your depth of field. If you had set to a 1.8 aperture because you think, well, it lets in more light, your aperture's your depth of field, and the only issue with that being is the fact that in video, from wherever you're going to be sitting from the camera, you would have to be really still and remain within the camera's focus point, because if you move outside of it, you'll find in your video your eyes might be out of focus. And it also depends on where you're going to be sitting and the distance you are sitting from your backdrop, and that's all things that you have to take into consideration with regards to depth of field. With regards to settings, the first thing I would look at, pressing the menu button and press right on the dial, and it will take you to the first menu, and it says record mode. Record mode, you can press and you can choose between your standard and manual. Manual will enable you, as I say, to change the aperture, your shutter speed at the far left, and your ISO. Those are the things that you can set in the manual mode, but again, that's something I would use if shooting not on the go. If you're moving on the go with the camera and you're vlogging, then I would probably recommend that you use something like automatic, because outside light changes. I've absolutely no idea where we're heading right now. That's the thing about this, fixing the brightness. Another thing to take note of is you might move from one lighting area into another lighting area, and the camera can change that automatically and it'll adjust those settings for you. So that's the purpose of why you'd probably use the automatic settings. Manual settings, as I say, is something more if you are sitting within position, or if it's a still image in video, then you would use that. So from a vlogging perspective, I would look at someone like Casey Neistat, who is not only very creative. I wouldn't say you have to copy everything that he does. You can come up with your own creative ideas and things. There's some clips you will see he walks into a room where the camera is just sitting there, and he will walk up to the camera. It's in a one position, it's sitting there, and he walks up and he starts speaking to it. Manual mode is good for adjusting the camera settings to what you want the lighting to be at. Now within video, if you're looking at manual, then you would have something between 50 frames per second as a shutter speed, or 60 frames per second. To adjust your aperture, you would adjust it so that it's reasonable, something that you feel comfortable with. And then your last resort is raising the ISO. Now raising the ISO, I would try and get it to about 400 to 800, and if it's still a bit dark, I would use an independent light. But most commonly, you will find yourself, and perhaps within this situation where you could be sitting talking, or maybe you're on the move and you're vlogging and you're talking to the camera and you find that there's passers-by, maybe you're in a busy street or whatnot, it would be then useful to set up what we call the Face ID. You will find the Face ID within the second menu setting, and you can go through this to add a registry. It's pretty straightforward to set up your own face recognition, and the camera will follow your face. It recognises your face from the crowd, and therefore it will follow you. It won't lose focus in that regard. And of course we do have the shooting information, where you'll find in this setting the grid display. I have it set by the 4 lines with the 9 squares. It won't show up in the video, of course, and that's just something that's there to give you a guideline. Again, you can manually set these buttons, such as the ring function, what you wish that to be. So that's all down to your own personal choice, really, how you set up the camera. And this function, obviously, I've got it set to AV, and you can choose between AV, which is your aperture, or of course TV, which is your shutter speed. And basically, you can choose between these two things. In other words, all that basically means is you can choose either that to be a setting to change for aperture, or you could use that to set to your shutter speed, basically. I have it set to aperture, therefore whenever I'm taking pictures or whatnot, I can choose to fix the aperture from that. Again, when it comes to vlogging and you look at the third menu, I would probably use this AF method of the tracking, and therefore it's going to constantly track you when you move around, and that's useful obviously for vlogging. It's mostly used in terms of moving subjects and things like that. Another thing that you'd probably look at in the next menu is the ND filter. Now, whether you wish to use the ND filter, it's really your own choice, and it depends on the situation you're in. Now, this is only if you're going to be in a situation where it's extremely bright and it's causing your camera to overexpose. What you can do is put the ND filter on, and as a result it's like sunglasses for your own camera. So another important setting in the next menu we'd look at is of course your white balance. In other words, this is perhaps one of the most important ones, and it depends on where you are going to record video. If you have a really cloudy day, put it on the cloudy setting. Can make a big difference to how your video looks. But yes, I mean, these are something I would look at first and foremost. There's another setting called picture style. Now, this is something I addressed in the previous video on the questions and answers, and it's basically this. I keep it on standard, but of course you can actually set this to monochrome. And setting it to monochrome allows you to shoot in black and white for whatever particular reason. But you can do all that in post-processing anyway, whether you're taking pictures or taking video. So I wouldn't worry about those type of things as such. So here's another important setting that you might look at for video, and it's the movie recording size. Basically, you can shoot within 1920 by 1080. That's about the size of a 40-inch television screen. You can set it to 60 frames per second, but you will only get this option if you set it to NTSC. You will not get this option with PAL settings. PAL settings in the UK, you're restricted in that regard. But if you do set your camera to NTSC, then you will get this setting. So you can have the 60 frames per second, you have the 30 frames per second, and you have the 24 frames per second. You have one setting there for 1280 by 720 setting for 30 frames per second, and last but not least the 640 by 480 30 frames per second. Wind filter is something that I set to automatic. This is something I just keep on automatic simply because the fact that at the end of the day, if you're going to be out vlogging anyway, you will find wind noise as a particular problem. And unfortunate as it is to say, this camera does not allow one of those external microphone inputs, which is a damn shame. It would have been nice if they added something like that into the camera. So after the 8th menu, and it goes into the setup settings into this menu, you'll notice down in this option your choice between NTSC or PAL settings, and that will enable you to change between the two of them. So I like to keep it on NTSC simply because the fact that it gives me that option to shoot within 60 frames per second. So that's really the basics of the Canon G7X Mark II settings for setting up for vlogging. Automatic settings is really good in terms of video, and I have been impressed with the camera myself in that regard. So anyway, if you have any questions that you would like to ask me about any further things, feel free to ask me in the comment section below. Please give the video a thumbs up, as it helps in terms of the views for the video, and it's how the ranking system works on YouTube. As well, of course, if you like the video, share the video, favourite the video, And of course, again, any further questions, feel free to ask me in the comments section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. So thank you for watching my video and I shall talk to you later. Cheers.